well-known interior designer from Canada and a good friend of mine, Tracey Fines.
Tracey Fines has been a successful real estate investor for over 25 years. Not only does she flip properties for massive profits, she designs and builds luxury custom homes and develops land. Tracey is an experienced investor and builder, published interior designer, and she has won numerous awards for design. Tracey is an award-winning author and international speaker who has been featured in international publications and on television. Having a zest for life, a love of great design, and an enthusiasm for creating beauty, she will uplift and inspire you to take massive action in your life to achieve your goals. And she wants to help you do the same. Please welcome Tracey Fines.
All right, welcome everyone. Today's training and discussion is going to be on the topic of financing. I'm going to discuss with you the different ways to get creative in finding the money so that we can do this amazing business. So most of you will be very comfortable and familiar with the traditional method of getting a mortgage, which would be going to your bank and like the standard sort of banking route, which is fine. Depending on where you are. I'm in Canada. Some of you will be maybe from the US or UK. You know, your banks will have different names than the banks that I'm familiar with. But basically what happens is they put you through a test of what your qualifications are to borrow money. And banks, the traditional banks are generally the most strict. So the cheapest money, just think of this equation, the cheapest money is the hardest to get, okay? The more expensive the money gets to borrow, the easier it becomes to get, okay? Think about how the bank always likes to give you credit cards, right? They like to just, here's a credit card. And you know it's like 19 or 20%, or some of them are even more than 20%, especially cards that you get from department stores are even more than, like sometimes they're 25% interest. So just think, the easier it is for you to get the money, the more expensive it becomes. Now, we are investor flippers. So we are not going to get emotionally wrapped up in paying more interest as long as the numbers work for the project. It's a business decision. We want to leave our emotions at the door. Okay. If you start to get upset and pissed off that someone's charging you, more than 2%, because that's what the bank rates are now, you're in the wrong business. Okay. You're in emotional business. We're not in emotional business in investing in real estate. It is a calculated, educated and calculated return on investment. Now, I'm going to say something else that is going to sound maybe different to you, and that's okay. The mentality, the way that we think as investors is different than the masses, okay? We are moving in towards acting differently than the masses, okay? We're moving in towards the people that have the most money on the planet, and these people have the most real estate on the planet. This is kind of a known fact that real estate is the way that the wealthiest people have made their money, going back to like all time. All time. It's always about land and who owns the land. So we're moving into a different way of thinking, okay? We want to be part of that 1% or whatever the upper echelon of people are. And these are the real estate investors. So we have to think differently. So now our thought process is based on business mindset. We are now looking at utilizing our property that we currently own as a tool. Now we're looking at it not as a retirement savings, which is the mentality of the masses. Pay off your mortgage, retire on what your house value is. That's old thinking. You will never be able to borrow for these low interest rates like you can now. So as an investor, we're going to turn our thinking upside down, and we're going to say, we're leveraging our properties to the max. We're going to max out our mortgage. We're going to ask for the most money. Now, you're not going to just willy-nilly go off and do that without a plan. But that will be how you get yourself to the next level. You will find a property like we talked about in other trainings and do the numbers. And once the numbers make sense, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go and you're going to find out how much your bank will lend you against your current property. So it's a completely different thought process. Now you're going to look at your house as a tool, as a stepping stone up. So totally different thought process, right? We want the cheapest money we can get, and we want pretty much as much of it as we can get as well, which means that we can build our portfolio faster. Okay, and we want to potentially do what I do, which is invest in properties that you can add value to and then sell. Okay, because we don't want to be speculators. Speculators are gamblers. We're not gamblers. Okay, we are value adders. We are making a property more valuable by doing what we do, which is fixing them up, finding messes, fixing them up. And generally speaking, the value, the amount of money we spend and invest in a property gives us a multiple of times in value added. And that's a general rule of thumb. Is, we spend $10,000 on fixing it up, we'll have a multiple of that back to us in value. Okay, because there's a value to your time that you spend on fixing something. There's a value that buyers see in that they don't have to do this. They don't have to go through the mess. They don't have to go through the pains. So we're going through the pains. We're adding the value. We're investing our own capital to improve the property, and we're going through the pains of all that. And for the pains of all that, we're rewarded in a multiple. And that's why I believe we're protecting our capital and we're protecting what we do, because there's a multiple of value added, which means that most likely we won't be affected by downturns in the market that much, because we're adding so much value. We create a natural cushion between what would cost to do that and what the value becomes. So if there is any kind of a market correction during the course of our projects, we generally have enough of a cushion to support any kind of sort of downturn. At least that's been my experience. So I've never lost any money in 26 years. There's been projects that I haven't made any money, which are pretty sad. But at least I didn't lose my capital. So that to me is good. which means that there's really no reason why you should have a different experience than me, because I'm not any more special than you. You can do exactly the same thing that I've done and be successful just like I have. Now, that's what we call an A lender, the banks, the regular banks that are on the street corner. Ever notice that they're always on the street corner? You know how I talk about corner properties being more auspicious? Banks know about this. They're always on the corner. They're visual on two sides. Okay. And corner properties is another conversation, another discussion that I've had in the past. But I just noted, just thinking about that right now, I just connected the facts that the banks know it. They're on the corner. So that's the A, we call those A type banks. Okay, those are the A lenders. Now you have a lot of qualifications to meet for A lenders. And you probably have all come across this when you've been looking to get financed for your purchase of your first home or your home, of the home you're in. And these rules become more and more strict all the time. They just, for whatever reason, the powers that be like to restrict us more and more and more on real estate. And I'm not really sure why they do it, except that it's, I think, a good opportunity for them to get more taxes, get more money basically out of us. Real estate is what I believe the number one source of the economy. Number one source of things actually happening in the economy. With all the building trade, with all of the immigration, the housing demand, all the taxes the government put on the housing stock, all the taxes on all the supplies to build houses, all this stuff. So it really feeds a huge machine. And then we have the banks that put a lot of restrictions on us as well. And this pretty much forces investors to look elsewhere for funds. So we then have the B banks, the B type lenders, we call them B lenders. B lenders are institutions like trust companies and credit unions. So these companies were traditionally the type of people that I would get money from. But the government has come along in my country and decided that there needs to be a lot more rules placed on lending to entrepreneurs like myself, self-employed people like myself, the people like me, and some of you will be like this, that don't declare a lot of income because it's not great for your taxes. The bottom line is you end up paying somewhere along the line, and the B type banks charge you higher interest. I don't know what it is currently. It might be around 4%, 3.5%, 4.5%. If the A type lenders are charging under 2%, then the B type lenders are probably double that somewhere. So around 4%, I'm guessing. Probably around 4%. But nowadays, there's a lot more rules that have been put in place in order to get that 4% mortgage financing. And what it comes down to is I don't really qualify for that either. And of course, they won't let me most of the time tear down houses that I finance, and I want to tear things down. And a lot of these lenders have rules about demolishing the property. If it's not deemed livable, some lenders will not lend to you. And that doesn't necessarily mean a full demolition. Just it means unlivable. If you don't have plumbing in a kitchen, let's say you take all that out, some lenders will not lend you on that house. So you have to be really careful to get your financing in place and committed and practically in your bank account before you do work, before you do demolition, before you change that property. It's best to have your financing closed, complete, applied, on title, leaned against your property, and your funds are in your bank that you just borrow. I have been in these situations where I took action before my loan was complete, and they sent out somebody to inspect the property, and one of my properties didn't have the kitchen anymore, and they said, well, that's not inhabitable. We don't lend on that. Beware. Financing will sink your ship if you don't get it. So do not do anything to your property until you've got the financing that you need. Very important. Yeah, and in my situation too, sometimes the rules of the mortgage are that you may not tear down the property, the house that exists. It's technicalities that can trip you up. You need to have your lawyer carefully go through the mortgage documents with you and all the terms, because the other slippery slope is this: when you are tied into a mortgage, you want to know how to get out of that mortgage potentially early. Your project may be done and you still have your mortgage's term is a year, but your project's done in 6 months and you want to sell. So you need to know what the expenses are going to be to get out of that mortgage. Typically, it's 3 months interest. That becomes an expense of your project. Did you allow that expense in your bottom line? A lot of times, no, we overlooked that. We forgot. Maybe there is they usually call it a breaking the term early penalty of 3 months interest. It might be different for your mortgage. You really need to have those terms explained to you before you agree to the mortgage, before you agree to the loan. Make sure you know your terms. Make sure you know your timeline on your project. Make sure you know the terms of that mortgage and be aware of what breaking the mortgage means. Or you need to extend that mortgage. One of my tips for you all is to see if you can negotiate an open mortgage. So there's different kinds of mortgages. There's closed mortgages, which means that maybe it's got a 1 to 5 year term, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year. That's a closed mortgage. That means the bank is counting on your interest for that whole term. When you negotiate as a flipper investor, you'll probably be turning a property around within the year or less. See if you can negotiate an open mortgage. It will cost you more in interest, but you'll have flexibility, and that's really important too. Sometimes it's good to negotiate an additional year, especially in my case, because my projects are big and long. This house that you see here behind me on my wall, I'm going to be building that, and that's going to take about a year to build. And knowing the way things go, things generally take longer and cost more than we think. So I negotiated a 2-year mortgage. The first year being closed, the second year being open. So I can close that off anytime now without that penalty. I'm actually about to ask for a third year because I got, waylaid by COVID problems. So I actually need to get an additional year now. And I'm going to call them up this week actually and ask for an extension on my mortgage. I'm going to ask it to be able to be continued at an open mortgage, an open term for the same rate, or maybe they can give me a better rate. Right now, my mortgage it's a private lender, which is the next tier of lending called the C lenders, private. My rate with them is 6.99%. Now I've already had 2 years with them at that rate. I'm going to ask them for an extension of another year, and maybe I can get a less percentage, I'm hoping. Now, when you get into the C lenders, which are private lenders, people like you and I, if we want to lend our money to another homeowner, that's called a C lender. If you lend as a C lender, you're going to actually, B lenders are the same. You're going to ask for a fee. So it's not just the interest rate, like the A banks are just interest rate. But B lenders and C lenders ask for fees. And typically, what my experience with the B lender is a 1 to 2% fee of the mortgage. So if the mortgage is $1 million, 1% of that is $10,000. I have to pay upfront as a fee, or $20,000 if it's 2%. I have to pay $20,000 on $1 million loan to get that loan, and I have to pay it up front. So I have to have cash to give them. They're going to take it off the mortgage, the money they give me. They're going to subtract it. So they're going to take their $1 million that they're lending me and subtract 20K off the top for them. And I don't want you to get pissed off about this fee. It's part of our world. Get used to it. And I know I have Tanya and Blair here, and they're both in the mortgage lending, they're both mortgage brokers, or Tanya is, and Blair is almost one. So they know about this, and this is standard. Now in C lenders, with private lenders, you will get higher lenders fees. Like it potentially will be 1% generally to the lender, sometimes 1.5% to the lender. And then you'll have the mortgage broker fee of 1 to 2% somewhere. You never know. And some of these things you can negotiate. I generally ask for lower fees, and I'm a good client to mortgage brokers, so I want a better deal. And my numbers are very high. Like I'm asking for millions of dollars. So my numbers are very high. So I'm asking for lower fees. And you can do this too. So be prepared. This is one of the reasons why I'm always very, very careful how I negotiate a deal. Not only with the money, the lenders, but with the seller. One of the beautiful opportunities you have, and a creative opportunity you have, is to ask the seller to give you a mortgage. This is called a seller take-back mortgage or a vendor take-back mortgage. You will hear these terms when you're in this world of real estate investing. Seller take-back mortgage is kind of a sweetheart of a deal. Usually a seller may not owe anything on the property that they are selling. It may be a $500,000 property and they don't owe anything on it. They paid off their mortgage. So when you're negotiating a deal, like I'm about to negotiate a deal for our joint venture group. And it's a $4.5 million house. And the seller has lived there a very long time, and he's an elderly gentleman. And I'm going to ask him if he will give us a mortgage on that property, because it could save us money and fees. And if he doesn't have anything to necessarily to do with that $4.5 million that he's going to get, he may consider giving us a mortgage for 5%, 6%. He may do that. And when you hear people talk about no money down deals, this is part of the equation. This is part of how you do it. You get the seller to lend you a big whack of it, and then you go to a bank and get the bank to lend you the rest. And you could potentially negotiate yourself 100% financing on that deal by utilizing those two sources for the funds. Now, typically, I would say that the bank needs to be given the first mortgage, and the seller would be the second mortgage. A bank is not going to go willingly into second position on a lien schedule behind the seller, because they're going to realize right then and there it's 100% financed potentially, and the bank will not want to do that, because the bank wants security. And if you have no money in the project, they're not going to want to put their money there. It's not secure for them. So the bank would have to go on as a first. Let's say the bank gives you 80% of 500,000. So that's basically what? 500,000. So that's like a $400,000 mortgage. And that last 20%, which is 100 grand, you could ask the seller to lend you. You could ask the seller to lend you that extra 100 grand. In fact, if you want to really shake things up and be bold, which is what I would definitely put it out there and be upfront about it and ask the seller, would they even consider funding you the construction money? You could potentially have even more than 100% money on that project. Now, they probably would be pretty skeptical at that point to do that, but depending on your relationship and what your rapport is with that person, you never know. You could work out something, maybe. I haven't done it. I haven't done that, by the way, but it's not that it's out of the possibility. So that's what some no money down deals can look like. That other no money down deals could look like you bring in a financial partner. Somebody has the money, maybe someone in your family has the money, but they don't want to do the pain of they don't want to be going through the pains of renovating a property. So you decide to be partners, and you'll do the painful stuff and they'll bring the money. That's a no money down deal for you. Okay, so currently my project, this one here that I'm doing, I have a first mortgage on it. I don't remember exactly, 60% maybe, 70% of the purchase price. And then I got a second mortgage on it for some more. Don't remember the percentages right now. And now I'm about to tear down the house and build the new house. And now I need more money for construction. So I'm in the middle of negotiating now a new second mortgage. So my first mortgage, I told you I want to ask for an extension. So I'm going to keep that first mortgage in place and ask for an extension. The second mortgage that I have, I'm refinancing it. So I will be adding more money to the amount. I'll be replacing the second mortgage, second mortgagee. Okay, there's mortgagee and mortgagor. Mortgagor is what I am. I'm the borrower. So mortgagor, borrower. Mortgagee is the lender. Ends with EE, mortgagee. The mortgagee is the lender. So the second lender So they will be paid back. I will have a penalty to pay the second mortgage back of, I believe it's 3 months interest. And I will pay off the second mortgage, and I will put a new second mortgage on for a lot more money so that I will have my construction funds. And I'm getting almost 100% of the funds I need, pretty close to 100% financing for the construction. And that's my first step. In fact, today I should be receiving the documentation from the mortgagee to give me the commitment for that money. And the commitment is a legal document that says they agree to lend me this money, and on this certain date we will close this transaction. So it's a commitment, it's a legal document. You will receive this kind of document as well from all the different kind of lenders that when you ask for money, they will give you a commitment. Now, the banks generally will give you like a pre-approval, it's called. And they usually give you a letter stating that for 3 months, this is what they will give you without having to recheck all of your statements and all of your employment status and all that kind of stuff. It's been a very long time since I've seen anything like that come across my desk. I'm in the world of private money especially because of tearing down buildings, and just banks don't go for that kind of stuff anymore. It just rules keep getting more and more and more strict all the time. So I am in the world of private lending, and that's fine. I don't mind being there. I have to pay more for the money, but it gives me the flexibility I need and want to do the jobs and the kind of jobs I want. The private lenders understand what I'm doing. They work with people like us. They work with investors. So it's an easier process for me to get approvals, and it's easier for me to get the money. I just have to pay more for it, which is part of my spreadsheet, part of my expenses of the job. So we want to leverage our property that we own, every one of them, as much as possible, so that we can continue to get more properties. If you want to do buy and holds, that's a great way to build wealth over time. Or if you want to do what I do, which is basically flip stuff, get your increased capital right away, that's what I like to do. And both are good methods. There's nothing wrong with doing the buy and hold method, as long as you are buying something that needs improvement. And the more improvement, the better for you. The more you add, the more you invest in the improvements up to market standard, do not go beyond market standard, you will be making a wise investment, because the value that you will create will be exponential. When you have created that exponential value, you can then go back to the bank and refinance. So when you're making your negotiation for that mortgage, always think about, when do I want to renegotiate this contract? If I'm going to buy and hold a property and the renovations are going to be 6 months, I kind of want to refinance after the project's done. Because guess what? You can refinance. The property value has gone up significantly because of your blood, sweat, and tears. And now you have the potential to take out all of or most of your capital that you just put into that property. It's almost like you just got it for free. And then you can keep that property in your portfolio, move on to the next. Improve the next thing, and now as much as possible up to market value. Don't go beyond market standard. Don't go beyond market standard, or you price yourself out of the market. But you improve the property to market standard, refinance, pull out all your equity again, move on and buy another one. As long as your rents are going to support the new financing. Okay, do not go into the hole on a property. You want to be cash flow positive. Great to see everyone here. I hope this has been meaningful and helpful to you all. And I will see you and speak to you all soon. Hey, hi, Tracey Fines here. And I'm so glad that you watched my video and my presentation because I love sharing what I do. I'm very passionate about it. And I want to help you do this too. So if this is interesting to you and you're excited to get involved in real estate investing, then click the link in the description below, and I invite you to join me at my live presentation where you can ask me questions and I can help you in the best way possible. So I look forward to sharing with you more at that presentation. See you then.